In 2020, citizens of the United States began to raise their voices louder and more consistently than ever before in our recent history. Protests demanded action to change the systemic racism that has plagued this country's history from the beginning. Voices in Sacramento, California joined the call that was heard in cities all around the country. This included the small Robla community located in the northernmost part of the city. Reuben Reyes is the superintendent of the Robla School District and oversees the work that happens in the 5 elementary schools and at the Robla preschool. He knew the district had a responsibility to take action in response to the unrest that followed the murder of George Floyd. In his annual message to the community, he called for action.
My responsibility to this community and the charge that the Robla School Board has given me is to make sure that we are always exploring ways to serve our community better. Here in Robla, we are within the boundaries of the city of Sacramento, and it's a small community, about 10 square miles. And in those 10 square miles, unfortunately, there is a great degree of poverty. Over 90%, sometimes up to 95% of our students they and their families are living below the poverty line. We also know that there's a great deal of racial and ethnic diversity amongst the families that we serve, which is something that we value greatly. There's also a great deal of linguistic diversity, so about 20 languages are spoken by the families here in the school district. And another unfortunate aspect of this community is that there's a lot of homelessness. There's a great deal of families who have instability in their housing. These challenges are what our students are living with every day. And it's important, I think, for the staff to have some sense of the culture of that aspect of life for our students and their families. The Robla Resilience Project is a professional learning approach. So what it is a program that we have designed over many years of refinement to work with our staff to help them gain in their perspective of the world. So we all come to work every day with the perspectives that we bring from having lived the life that we've lived. And that may or may not connect with the community that we serve. So the Robla Resilience Project really is about helping people see that there are other perspectives in the world. And in gaining in our understanding of what it's like to live in someone else's shoes, whether that's related to socioeconomic level, language, culture, race, or ethnicity, we think that that's a really important thing for us to understand in terms of broadening our own perspectives of the world.
I thought it was so important that you understand that this point in sessions such as this, you acknowledge where you've been, but you also kind of talk about where you're going. And some of this is a bit of review. And so when we start thinking about our goal, right, we have to talk about this from a foundational standpoint that's going to allow us then to build into creating systemic change.
When Robla began to embark upon this idea of forging stronger relationships with our community, it made sense maybe to find some allies in this work. So we've connected with Derrell Roberts with the Roberts Family Development Center.
The relationship that started between Robla School District, the Superintendent Reuben Reyes, and I started 12 years ago. When I was invited to visit the district and invited us to embark on a partnership we call Resilience. I think in a way resilience changed as a result of the uprising in America. I mean, the George Floyd death in particular, his murder really caused Reuben and I first to have a real conversation about what are we trying to do. And I think it became more a conversation with others about how do we really meet the goals that we set out for resilience.
We met Dr. Sarah Trubridge through an introduction with Mr. Roberts, actually. And Sarah Trubridge is a researcher at the time she was in the Bay Area. She had been doing work nationally, actually internationally, in resilience, this idea that all children are capable, that everybody has the ability to learn and to grow. So Dr. Trubridge was someone whose research really was well aligned with what was happening and what our thinking was here in the Robla School District.
Reuben Reyes asked Derrell Roberts and myself to work with the staff who chose to work with us. So for 9 years, Derrell and I have been bringing resilience and cultural responsiveness to those in the Robla community who have expressed a desire to work more on understanding the community that they serve. My work, especially in Robla, and a lot of the work that I do is working with educators to believe in the children, the students, and the parents that they work with, because we all know with beliefs that what we believe it manifests in our language, in our behavior, and those messages, even though we don't think we're conveying such messages, do get conveyed to our students. Little did we know we'd be in a global pandemic and in a social and political environment where we are seeing the issues of equality come to a head. And so because of that, Reuben recommitted himself to this work.
During the summer of 2020, when we were looking at how to broaden this work and how to deepen this work and how to take some next steps with this work based upon what was happening in our country, we decided that we needed to bring some more voices to the table. We needed some additional perspective. So by adding some new perspectives, we thought that that would help us to grow. And as is often the case, I turned to my partners, in this case, of course, Dr. Trubridge and Mr. Roberts. And we were introduced to some new players that we invited to the table. And it turns out that it was a really, really wonderful thing to have happen. Dr. Andrea Moore, who is a professor at California State University, Sacramento, in the Department of Ethnic Studies, is someone who began to work with us at that time. And then Sonia Lewis, who is a consultant, an educational consultant, but has been involved in work around racial equality and systemic racism for quite some time in the Sacramento region.
I think the Robla Resilience Project is unique in that the infrastructure of who are all the players at the table. So we have community stakeholders, which are our parents, which are our students, which are our board, which are grassroots organizations like the Roberts Family Development Center, for example. But we also have a team of evaluators. We also have project managers. We also have top tier research analysts, as well as we have literally my co-facilitator is oftentimes front and center leading a protest to advocate for something that is going on, an injustice that's going on in Sacramento. So we have grassroots level all the way up to the boardroom level of folks who are excited about this project, who are part of our infrastructure. So when we initially came together, we constructed a 3-tier agenda, if you will. And we constructed one tier based off of 10 months. And the goal of that tier was to create a conversation for anti-racism, right? A safe conversation, a safe space to have that conversation. And what we have seen in this project is people first had to get to know each other, right? It's a virtual setting. So how do you become acclimated with 300 folks and how do you build community? So we had to kind of go through and develop a certain level of trust to build community. And when we begin to hear people speak up, whether they sent emails, whether they said something in the chat, whether they spoke outright, out loud, we began to see that we were actually curating a safe space for conversations around anti-racism. And again, that's our tier 1 goal, just to get folks talking about this conversation because it is so taboo and it's so uncomfortable for many people.
When we think about it, media oftentimes provides the stereotypical image.
Right.
And so it's the stereotypical image that sometimes we're trying to push back against and trying to provide a counter to, because once we're only provided and bombarded with the stereotypical image, unfortunately, folks then begin to believe that to be the accurate or the truth or the essential, portrayal or ways in which we should think about said characters being represented on the screen.
Absolutely.
Bringing them to the table really helped us to talk, I think honestly, a little more pointedly around racism and the goal of anti-racism and the perspectives that we wanted to bring that would help everyone feel that they could learn. We learned quickly that it would be work that maybe would make people uncomfortable, that it would be something that wouldn't be very pleasant for some people as we kind of open up a door around, the history of racism in our country and the way that systems work very often against people of color.
At the end of the day, the goal is always going to be creating a sense of belonging, because belonging impacts one's productivity. When we're talking about looking around the classroom and what images do we put on the wall, what does that say to a child who's from a different country or speaks a different language?
When we decided to take everything up a notch, it also made a great deal of sense to take the research up a notch. So we decided to involve some real researchers who understand some of the effective practices in the research arena to help work with us to, from the beginning, design a methodology for evaluating the work that we're doing. And we were put into contact with Dr. Margarita Jimenez Silva, who is here at the University of California at Davis in the School of Education. And she is the sister of Norma Jimenez Hernandez, who together are part of an organization that does educational research to not only help us to design our evaluation methodologies, but to watch as this program has evolved, and they've actually helped us along the way to think of evaluation activities that could happen.
And so Sisterhood for Equity Consulting was called in and said, are you interested in this project? And we said, yeah, absolutely. I think more than anything, because we really felt that there was a genuine interest to move the needle. And that Reuben and Sarah just really wanted to say, is this working? We don't want to just do this for the sake of doing it, but we really want to see, are we moving the needle? Are we making a difference? And we really want there to be an evaluation part to it, which oftentimes in the equity work that we do, diversity work that we do, that's not necessarily the case as we see other people do it.
I think it's critical. I think a lot of us went into education because we want to see, the education system serve kids who've been traditionally underserved or marginalized. And it's very hard to come into a workplace where that's not a shared vision. So I think that part of what I'm seeing at the district level, for this being done at the district level, is there's a common language that we're using to talk about these ideas. There's a commitment to core values that we're saying we're all a part of this, and if we want to be part of this school district, we're agreeing that these are the values that we're all going to hold dear to. We believe that we need both kinds of data. We need survey data that's going to help us see the overall impact of the different efforts that are subsumed under the Robla Resilience Project. So what survey data helps us see is kind of an overall broad scope picture of what is the impact, especially across time. So not just about one point in time, as we know there's a lot of professional development that's one and done, drive-through kind of professional development, but really thinking about looking at it systematically across time so that we can provide evidence that this is having an impact.
I think that the work we did this year with the Robla Resilience Project is definitely going to have an impact on my work with students and with my coworkers, and just in my personal life with my relationships, friends, and just thinking about myself, my heritage, where did I come from, what kind of impact can I have daily. It brought up a lot of things for me I hadn't really thought about before.
We think it's important for all staff to participate in resilience because all of our staff with our families. So this is about what happens in the classroom. And initially when this work was designed, it was really a strong focus on teachers. We were hoping to really kind of impact the curriculum, impact instruction. But we've learned over time that this really is something that should be part of the work that we do every day. So whether you're a school secretary, or the custodian, or a bus driver, or someone who is serving food as the children come through at lunchtime or breakfast, we think it's important for us all to have a depth of understanding around the communities that we serve. We were motivated really recently to step this up because of all of the turmoil that we heard about in the summer of 2020 and the Black Lives Matter movement and the George Floyd incident, which was a tragedy that we all experienced and really motivated, I think, as we saw throughout the country, a demand for us to really look at the systems. And a school district is a system that should examine what it does as well. So it was really, really important for us to become involved in that work and take our steps to take some action, not just to talk about the fact that this is important, but to actually do something. And for us, it made sense to create a training program for our employees.
Our goal, our mission, like what we do is to inspire and be there for humanity. I think the greatest thing about, personally, the Robla Resilience Project, that we're having those conversations that really get into the heart of what is our shared humanity. What are we here for? What are we doing? Who are we? What do we bring to this space?
I feel it's important for school districts to do a program like this so that we get an idea of all the different cultures out there and how they experience things differently than we do, how they react to things differently than we do. We all have different experiences. Yes, and this was very, very eye-opening.
It dawned on me as we made it relevant to resilience, this might be a process that would be really powerful in the work that we could do with individuals on a heart basis with their own personal human development that would be able to build on the work that we've done, and that we could maybe integrate it with the work that we have been doing. So I went to the superintendent and proposed that we take a look at that.
The Developmental Sprint is a process created by our co-founders of the Developmental Edge, Andy Fleming and Claire Lee, and is based in extensive research done at Harvard by our chief knowledge officers, Drs. Robert Keegan and Lisa Leahy. It's an improvement process that has led to many self-discoveries, self-awareness, and change in many people. By focusing on one improvement goal, we work together as a group to surface the behaviors and assumptions that hold us back from gaining traction towards those goals. And by approaching development as a team sport, we can quickly find common ground and connect with one another's humanity to create a safe space to test our assumptions to find real truth.
Our goal with this project is still the same. We are curating a safe and brave space for vulnerable conversations to be had about race within the Robla family.
I was convinced it wasn't going to be super helpful. You know, I heard the stories, I heard how impactful it was, so I did my goal, and I said, okay, I'm gonna put it down, put it into the portal, plan tomorrow's math lesson, right? We're just gonna keep living. But what happened, it was so interesting. I reverberated to that goal every day. It was electrifying. Like I didn't expect to have such an experience with it, but boy, it was amazing. Everything that is said about the sprint at the onset, completely true. It was transformational.
And we're asking people who are leaders who've already been excited about this work to join, maybe even potentially to become a CRA, which stands for Community Resilience Ambassador. So there are tons of leaders who are already really invested in equity work.
So as a Community Resilience Ambassador, that was a great experience having pretty much the same group each time we met, because as that time progressed, we were able to create a good relationship as a group, or each time people were more and more comfortable to share based on whatever topic we were discussing, because it was a space that they felt good about doing that. Resilience has helped me to have a better understanding of where our families are in their experiences, because as we're working with different families and different students, it's really important that when they're going through something that's tough in their life, that we have compassion for that, and we have empathy, and we really try to have a good understanding of how we can, one, understand that, and then also support them in what they need.
The Robla Resilience Project has had an impact on my work, and I think what it's done is it's validated my work with students, with community, with staff members. It's not that we weren't doing the work before, it's that this sort of just brought it out in the open, and it gave us that forum.
Some of the things I liked about the resiliency is listening to other people's experiences was very eye-opening. I hope we continue with that, opening up to each other.
Biggest keys to this whole thing is the dedication of the leadership of Robla to their teachers and faculty and staff. Like, they care so much about their community and their students and the people in the Robla community that this has become a priority for them. I think that there are not a lot of places that have the courage or are willing to kind of put themselves out there to do this kind of work. The dedication of this team has really been outstanding and inspiring.
So here in Robla, what seems to be happening is that the schools are at the center of this community. There aren't a lot of social services available in this community. There aren't a lot of medical services. There aren't even a lot of grocery stores available in this community. So what we're finding is that a school district such as Robla needs to become involved in helping meet the challenges of that type of geography. So we find it's a place where if we can deliver some of these services, or at least provide access to these services for families, it can be a really important thing. So these challenges are part of what we need to be involved in this community. Now, the other side of that, of course, is that most of our staff have not had to live with these challenges in their lives. We have, for many of us, have come from places where we've not had to experience the level of poverty that our students have experienced. Racially and ethnically, our staff is not as diverse as our student population, so there's a bit of a disconnect there. They've never lived in the skin of a person of color. So these aspects of who our students are and who we are as employees have sometimes not allowed us to stay as connected or get as connected, or to build the types of relationships that maybe would be a stronger foundation for the work we do with our students. So resilience really is kind of born from that concept that if we can really forge those relationships, then we are creating students who are activating their ability to be resilient, and we as employees are more resilient in our skills with working with a wider range of students and the challenges they may be meeting in their lives. So this work is really it's not really to change anybody. It's really to grow in perspective and to help our employees grow in their perspective of who people are in the world and what kind of lives they may be living, because we may be encountering that when they come to school every day and they're in our classrooms. Here in the Robla School District, we like to call ourselves the Robla family. And the Robla family is characterized by a number of things, but I think most importantly, it is characterized by a group of professionals, the people who work here. There are about 300 of us who are completely dedicated to the families that we serve. And that is evident every day in the things that everyone does that are above and beyond what's required of them. But they know that our students have needs and they're willing to do whatever they can to help meet them. And I think that dedication really is the foundation for the strong relationships that we're able to build in a small school district like this.